recording?
Yeah. Okay, so do we want to start with A first? Yes?
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Uh, I put most of for A in the low area. Did anyone have anything different?
Not really.
Yeah, like there was
I had it all in low except for like a couple of things I said like teetering on medium. Like it was kind of like skeptical, but like it was literally teetering on it.
Yeah,
So
there was a couple that I like ummed and ahed about, but I think for me anyway, overall they did enough to not be in the very low area for any of it. Like it was obviously felt very rushed, particularly towards the end, but I still think they had enough in there that I wasn't going to mark them that down. Yeah?
Yeah, I would actually say that the exploration ideas would be sitting at very low because a lot of the arguments are coming from their own thoughts rather than evidence-based studies.
Yeah.
So they only bring in evidence when they're talking about the Chicago primary in 2014. But apart from that, a lot of the ideas are based upon their opinion rather than facts. So I would say that's sitting on a very low as opposed to
that evidence. Even with that evidence, I felt like it was the way they put that in was very like blasé. Like they didn't really stress it.
Yeah, they didn't really give it enough emphasis for it to be like this is a big thing.
Felt shoehorned in.
Yeah.
I also felt that like even though they used a few like techniques, I felt they could have pushed, like particularly in some areas, they could have pushed it just a little bit further to make it more effective.
Yeah, I only got really the rhetorical questions and like anecdote.
Yeah, like there was a lot of anecdote stuff, but
yeah, there was a lot of inclusive language, like a lot of the we, which ideally usually would work if you use it strategically.
Yeah,
but in this sense, it was so often that it almost played it down.
Well, it seemed like they had an idea of a few of these persuasive language techniques and they were sticking to the ones that they knew well instead of trying to incorporate a wide range.
It also felt like they had an idea and didn't really think about it too much when they were implementing or creating their speech. You can kind of tell that they had maybe like a one sentence idea and then tried to push that the whole way through into a full speech.
I've written here you've demonstrated the incorporation of some evidence, but you have not explored these ideas.
Yeah.
He's just like pop them in and then not explore them at all.
Yeah.
So I think that at least for that, the control of oral language features, I think that's sitting at a low. But I would say it's on the cusp of a medium if there was a wider range of those persuasive language techniques.
I said it's on the cusp of medium, so I'd give them like an extra like half a mark there because it does have like at least 3 persuasive techniques in there, which I can't say that that's not.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't the way they were used weren't very, as good as it would have been in a regular
medium. It could have been, yes.
Yeah. So that's why I kind of just gave them an extra half mark because I felt like it wasn't enough to be a low, but it definitely wasn't enough to be a medium.
And what did you guys have for the ability to position the target audience?
Yeah, that was the only one I was a bit on the fence of, only because they used a lot of inclusive language.
Yeah.
And
well, I think it comes back to they were really reliant on that because they think that they know how to use that and they weren't confident in trying to apply any other techniques.
Yeah, so I think if they had a little bit more of like something else to support that, it would have kind of hit home a bit better. I put it actually in between very low and low just because for me, when I was going through it, it didn't, like none of it really hit home enough for me. Like I was like, this is a cool idea, but like tell me more about it sort of thing. So I was a bit on the fence whether like where to put it.
The only reason I didn't put it I didn't put it towards very low was because even though they did kind of stick to those specific persuasive techniques, I can't say they didn't use them at all.
Yeah.
Like they didn't there was obviously an attempt. You can see a few like rhetorical questions in there. You can see some inclusive language. You know, you can see they did use kind of evidence. You can see there's an attempt there, and they're trying to reach out to their audience specifically. Like they talk directly to the audience like a lot and bring them in. So
I think I agree with the statement mentioned before that it seems very rushed. Like it wasn't something that they spent time researching and writing out. It seems like this is a first draft of something that could be a lot better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
So if that's just a time management thing, or I don't know.
So I think then, since we're all sitting, you know, between, you know, lows, very lows, and mediums, I think this can sort of be put at like a range for like an 8 to a 10-ish.
Yeah, I've got
that's what I've
down
got.
9.
I had one at 11.
Yeah.
Yeah. So even 8 to 11.
Yeah.
Yeah. Should we... I can't do math. Never mind. So moving on to B.
Yep.
How did we feel about this one?
I think it was really well researched, well written, had a lot of different persuasive language techniques. You can tell the person has gone through multiple drafts, multiple edits, and they've really thought about the issue. It's not something that's been, you know, done the night before.
Yeah, they structured it really well too. Just to go through, they had a few different points that were clearly different but linked together. There was a sense of urgency as well with the language used to sort of convince people a bit more, which I thought was great.
I think,
like they're using persuasive techniques, like they draw you in within like the first 2 sentences.
Yeah, you can tell that like they've looked at it over a couple of times, been like, is there something that I can add more to improve this, which is really good. Like great use of research. They clearly thought about it a lot beforehand.
The only parts that I felt that I pretty much put them in very high for almost like pretty much everything. The only parts that I marked them slightly down for, and this could be me being really harsh, but even though they did use a lot of evidence, I felt like in some points it was almost overused to the where they didn't have enough room to speak extra in that area. I think like in the second paragraph or something, there's just a lot of it is just straight up just talking about evidence, and I felt like they could have elaborated more. And it's great.
I put that as high in that regard because of that exact point that you just made, Bree. That there's just too much going on and not enough time for the person to speak about what they've said, like the evidence that they've put forward.
Yeah, on a similar line, for the coherent stuff, I put it in between high and very high just because it felt like at times it was a little bit like muddled. Like I had to go through and be like, what are they trying to say? A little bit, just because there was so much like factual stuff, and then they'd try and put in what they were saying as well, that I got a little bit like overwhelmed trying to figure out what the main point of certain passages was.
Well, I think the comment can be made about this piece that they've done their research well. They just need to work on picking what to use and what not to use, because it feels like they've just found everything and they're like, I'm just going to find a way to fit it in here instead of picking what they should be using and getting rid of what they don't need.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, apart from that, I have them sitting at basically very high or on the cusp of very high for everything.
Yeah, everything
I think
for me is...
Yeah, like the tone, and I think that if we were to hear this person actually present, I think that the articulation would be really good based on what they've written.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. I think and the flow of it, like it just feels like it would flow really well, the start of each new paragraph.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can also tell that they've clearly chosen this because they care about it as well. Like, you can see in their statement of intention that this is something that they actually want to talk about anyway. So I think if we were able to watch this, they would actually be quite, what's the word I'm looking for? Well, it would fill up the room a lot better, I think, than some of the others.
Yeah. And the only other part that I really kind of marked them down for was with where it says detailed understanding of argument. I felt like where they've mentioned like what's the word? Like solutions to it, they've kind of just listed it in that last paragraph. I feel like they could have embedded that in throughout the piece, whereas chucking that in that last paragraph and just kind of brushing over them, like listing them, it kind of didn't really give us enough, you know, to feel persuaded enough to like kind of go through those methods.
Yeah.
See, I disagree with that. I think that having all the responses of what you could do at the end is better, because it felt like the first half was very like continuous, like punches to the gut, like this is going wrong, this is going wrong, this is going wrong. But then at the end, they're like, but it's not all bad. Like this is what you can do.
I get that. I just feel like it could have gone. They could have elaborated on it. Whether they mean they could have put like a piece of evidence in there of how someone's implemented something like that.
Yeah.
Gone well. I feel like just listening it with like just outright like that. It's good, but not enough for me to put it at the very highest end because I feel like it could have been pushed a little bit more.
Yeah, I think it's important to like acknowledge that there are going to be students that would perform possibly better in like a lot of those sections. So we have to really think about like where we're putting them on this spectrum.
Yeah.
Especially compared to the lower achieving one.
Yeah.
Because there'd be kids that are probably like perform lower than that. So we need to really think about like where we're putting them on this kind of like spectrum of this rubric.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what kind of range are we looking at with grades? I gave it a 23.
Yeah, so did I.
Yeah, I did 24, so I think probably that area, the
23, 24.
23, 24 is probably a good bet, just because you can tell that they've done a lot of prep work as well, and the likelihood of every single kid doing the same level of prep work is pretty unlikely.
With like just like a stamp in the middle, like 23.5, I feel like that's pretty.
Yeah, that's good. Okay. Yeah, great. I'm gonna stop recording now.